Looking for a delicious way to turn simple ingredients into something extraordinary? Today we're making stuffed bell peppers, a dish that's hearty, flavorful, and easier than you think. Stay tuned because you won't want to miss this, the taste of home. What does the taste of home mean to you? For generations of families in lower income households, certain dishes became symbols of resilience and creativity. With limited resources and hungry mouths to feed, American families crafted meals that fit tight budgets. Picture the scent of sizzling onions and the warmth of a homemade casserole. These meals were more than just food. They were traditions shaped by the struggles of the Great Depression and wartime rationing. Let's explore the comforting dishes that nourished generations and became a cherished part of America's culinary history. 1. Casseroles. Today, we are making my easy and delicious chicken and stuffing casserole. Casseroles were a staple in lower-income households, not just because they were filling, but because they embodied the spirit of making the most of what you had. These one-dish wonders gained popularity in the early 20th century, especially during the Great Depression and World War II, when families needed to stretch their limited resources. With rationing in full effect, home cooks got creative, repurposing leftovers by combining bits of chicken, ham, or ground beef with pantry staples like pasta, rice, or vegetables. But the true revolution in casserole making came in the 1950s with the rise of canned condensed soups like cream of mushroom or chicken. Often advertised as a busy housewife's best friend, these soups acted as the perfect binder, transforming simple ingredients into a creamy, flavorful dish. As the casserole baked, its bubbly golden crust filled the kitchen with an aroma that signified comfort, frugality, and a meal that could feed a family for days. The beauty of casseroles was their flexibility. Whatever was on hand, from frozen vegetables to leftover potatoes, could be tossed in. Sometimes a layer of cheese was sprinkled on top, creating a golden, bubbly crust that everyone fought over. These dishes were designed to last, ensuring there were always leftovers to stretch the family's grocery budget. Whether it was a tuna noodle casserole or a classic green bean version, casseroles represented creativity in the face of limitation. As casseroles filled the table with their hearty layers, the next dish delivered comfort with every creamy bite, bringing together simple ingredients for a nourishing and flavorful combination. 2. Rice and beans. Nearly every warm weather culture on Earth has its own version of rice and beans, a budget-friendly staple that never disappointed. I still remember the scent of onions and garlic sizzling in a pot of oil, signaling that a hearty meal was on the way. Dried beans, whether pinto black or kidney, were soaked and simmered. 2. Rice and beans. Nearly every warm weather culture on Earth has its own version of rice and beans, a budget-friendly staple that never disappointed. I still remember the scent of onions and garlic sizzling in a pot of oil, signaling that a hearty meal was on the way. Dried beans, whether pinto, black or kidney, were soaked and simmered slowly until they became rich and tender. Patience was essential, but the reward was worth it. Once ready, the beans were ladled over a mound of fluffy rice, and just like that, dinner was served. In some households, bits of sausage, bacon, or ham hock were added to the beans for extra flavor. But most of the time, rice and beans stood on their own, seasoned with simple ingredients like salt, pepper, and maybe a bay leaf. It was a meal that could stretch for days, feeding the whole family without breaking the budget. Historically, rice and beans have been staples in many cultures, especially in Latin America, the Caribbean, and parts of the American South. For many of us, this dish reflects our roots. simple ingredients transformed with care and time. And while it may have been born out of necessity, it always provided a sense of comfort and security. While rice and beans offered a reliable foundation, the next dish took center stage when it came to making ground beef go further and feel just a bit more special. 3. Meatloaf. Here we go. Family meatloaf. This classic dish transformed ground beef into a hearty, budget-friendly meal. It first became a mainstay in American homes during the Great Depression and later in World War II, when food scarcity and rationing forced families to be resourceful. Watching your mother mix ground beef with breadcrumbs, onions, eggs, and whatever seasonings were available was a familiar sight in many households. Meatloaf was a symbol of survival and ingenuity. Stretching a single pound of meat to feed an entire family was no easy task, but this dish met that challenge head-on. Originally a European dish, meatloaf gained widespread popularity in America in the early 20th century, appearing in cookbook as a thrifty way to make a little meat go a long way. During the war, home cooks relied on meat extenders like breadcrumbs or oats to bulk up the loaf while keeping it moist. Shaped into a loaf and baked until golden brown, meatloaf became a dinner table staple, not just because it was filling, but because it could be adapted to whatever ingredients were on hand. What made it truly special was the ketchup or barbecue sauce glaze caramelizing as it baked and creating a sweet savory crust that made it a family favorite. Served with mashed potatoes or a side of vegetables, meatloaf provided warmth and comfort in uncertain times. And the best part? The leftovers. A cold slice of meatloaf between two pieces of bread made for the perfect sandwich the next day. Meatloaf wasn't just food, it was a testament to the creativity and resilience of American families, who found ways to turn humble ingredients into satisfying meals. If meatloaf was the star of a hearty dinner, the next dish was perfect for those days when every last bit had to stretch just a little further, bringing everything together in one satisfying bite. Spam, the unsung hero of the kitchen. Spam isn't just canned meat, it's a lifesaver that has fed generations, especially in lower-income households. Born out of necessity during World War II, spam became a staple when fresh meat was scarce, serving both soldiers and families struggling with rationing. Introduced in 1937, its affordability, long shelf life, and ease of preparation made it an instant favorite. With just a hot skillet, that pink block of meat transformed, its edges crisping up, filling homes with a savory aroma. A classic breakfast? Sliced spam, fried until golden, paired with fluffy scrambled eggs. For lunch, a fried spam sandwich was a go-to. Crispy slices nestled between toasted bread, slathered with mustard or mayo, and sometimes topped with melted American cheese for extra comfort. Dinner was no exception. Spam found its way into casseroles, fried rice, or stir-fries, stretching a meal even further. It wasn't fancy, but it was reliable, filling, and adaptable. In times when wasting food wasn't an option, nothing went to waste. Fried spam made repeat appearances throughout the week, yet somehow it never lost its appeal. Much like spam, the next dish became a beloved staple, one that brought families together with its rich, cheesy simplicity. Macaroni and cheese, the ultimate comfort food. Whether made from scratch or straight from the box, mac and cheese is more than just a meal, it's a taste of nostalgia. During the Great Depression, Kraft introduced its iconic boxed mac and cheese in 1937, offering an easy, budget-friendly solution for struggling families. With just a handful of ingredients, a warm, satisfying meal was ready in minutes. Those who made it from scratch took it a step further, cooking tender elbow macaroni and folding it into a creamy cheese sauce made from butter, milk, and whatever cheese was available. Cheddar, American, or a mix of both. Some families sprinkled breadcrumbs on top and baked it until golden and crispy, adding a layer of crunch to the already indulgent dish. For many, mac and cheese wasn't just a side, it was the main event. It filled bellies, stretched bodies, and brought a moment of comfort to even the hardest days. And after savoring every creamy, cheesy bite, the next dish took simplicity to another level, proving that even the most basic ingredients could create something truly satisfying. Fried bologna sandwiches, a humble classic. The fried bologna sandwich was proof that even the simplest ingredients could create something special. Bologna, an affordable and long-lasting lunch meat, became a kitchen staple during the Great Depression. While it was inexpensive, frying it turned it into something far more delicious. As the bologna hit the hot pan, its edges curled and crisped, releasing a rich, savory aroma. Once perfectly golden, it was placed between two slices of soft white bread, the most affordable kind, often paired with a smear of mustard or mayo. Some added a slice of cheese, while others toasted the bread alongside the bologna for extra crunch. But this sandwich wasn't just about flavor, it was about resourcefulness. The sizzling sound of bologna cooking, the simplicity of its preparation, and the satisfaction of turning a few basic items into a comforting meal made it a household favorite. While a fried bologna sandwich was a quick fix, colder days called for something heartier, something warm, creamy, and deeply comforting. Potato soup, the ultimate winter warmer. On chilly nights, nothing was more comforting than a steaming bowl of potato soup. During the Great Depression, when families needed to stretch every last ingredient, potatoes were the perfect solution. Cheap, filling, and easy to grow. The process was simple but magical. First, onions sizzled in butter, filling the kitchen with an inviting aroma. Then, diced potatoes simmered in broth, sometimes chicken stock, but more often just water with basic seasonings. Even with limited ingredients, the soup became creamy and rich when milk or cream was stirred in. If a family was lucky, they'd toss in bits of bacon or cheese for extra indulgence. But even without them, the soup was satisfying. Warm, crusty bread often accompanied the meal, soaking up the velvety broth and turning a simple dish into something truly filling. And just like potato soup relied on a humble staple to create something incredible, the next dish, bread itself, was more than just a side. For many, it was a source of comfort, tradition, and survival. Cornbread was the unsung hero of budget-friendly kitchens, a golden-crusted, tender delight that graced dinner tables through the Great Depression and beyond. It wasn't just affordable, it was incredibly versatile. Made from simple pantry staples like cornmeal, flour, sugar, and milk, cornbread was quick to whip up, making it the perfect side for almost any meal. Cornmeal was an essential ingredient in many homes, a testament to the ingenuity of families making the most of what they had. Whether served alongside hearty soups, stews, or beans, cornbread offered a comforting, slightly sweet contrast to savory dishes. Fresh from the oven, it had a moist, fluffy texture with crispy edges from the hot skillet or baking pan. Some families drizzled it with honey or syrup, turning it into a sweet breakfast treat the next morning. Leftovers never went to waste. Crumbled cornbread found new life in milk, soup, or whatever meal was on the table the next day. More than just food, it was a symbol of resilience and warmth, proving that even the simplest ingredients could bring comfort and joy. And as cornbread satisfied appetites, the next dish demonstrated how humble pantry staples could transform into a meal that nourished both body and spirit, often lasting for days. Red beans and rice. Every warm weather culture on earth has its own version of red beans and rice, and for good reason. It's an affordable, filling dish that can feed a family for days. In lower income households, this meal was a staple, celebrated for its simplicity and slow cooked richness. Dried beans would simmer for hours with onions, garlic, and whatever seasonings or smoked meats were on hand. Sausage, ham hock, or even bacon, creating a deep, savory broth that soaked into the rice. This slow-cooked process made the dish rich, hearty, and satisfying. Red beans and rice were especially beloved in Creole cooking, where families often prepared large batches on Sundays, ensuring leftovers for the week. A pot of beans bubbling on the stove filled the house with warmth and comfort, a familiar ritual passed down through generations. Despite its humble origins, this dish showcased the creativity of home cooks who stretched their resources while delivering bold flavors. As red beans and rice nourished families and warmed hearts, the next dish highlighted another budget-friendly classic, one that turned basic pantry ingredients into a creamy, comforting meal. Tuna noodle casserole. Tuna noodle casserole was the ultimate pantry meal, affordable, easy to make, and perfect for feeding a family without breaking the bank. Emerging in post-World War II kitchens, this dish became a go-to for home cooks looking for a hearty meal on a budget. It started with egg noodles, boiled until tender, then mixed with a can of tuna and a can of condensed soup, typically cream of mushroom. This combination created a creamy, satisfying casserole that was both filling and flavorful. To add texture and crunch, families often topped it with breadcrumbs or crushed crackers before baking, creating a crispy golden crust. Born out of necessity, tuna noodle casserole quickly became a beloved classic, proving that with a little creativity, even the simplest ingredients could make a meal that felt special. It was a dish that brought everyone to the table, offering both nourishment and comfort. And after a hearty dinner, mornings often called for something just as satisfying, but much quicker to prepare. Nothing filled a kitchen with warmth like the sweet, sizzling aroma of a breakfast favorite on the griddle pancakes today. I am going to show you the best way to make pancakes at home. Pancakes have long been a crowd pleaser, especially for families with kids. Made from simple pantry staples like flour, eggs, and milk, they were quick, easy, and perfect for making in big batches, whether using a boxed mix or making them from scratch. The moment the batter hit the hot skillet, it sizzled, filling the kitchen with the irresistible aroma of breakfast. During the Great Depression, pancakes became a household favorite because they were budget-friendly and could feed large families without stretching finances. A drizzle of syrup was the classic finishing touch. But when syrup wasn't available, butter and sugar or a spoonful of jam worked just as well. Some families would mix in berries or chocolate chips, transforming this humble dish into a delightful treat. Fluffy, golden, and stacked high, pancakes became a weekend tradition, bringing smiles to the table. And when the day turned to evening, a hearty one-pot meal was always ready to make the most of what was on hand. Delicious, filling, and designed to stretch ingredients as far as possible. Goulash. Looking for a meal that's easy, satisfying, and made in one pot? Goulash was the answer. This simple yet hearty dish brought families together around the dinner table. A budget-friendly classic, goulash could be made with whatever ingredients were available, making it a lifesaver for lower-income households. The base of this dish typically consisted of ground beef, onions, garlic, elbow macaroni, and a rich tomato sauce. Its flexibility allowed home cooks to toss in bell peppers, corn, or even cheese for a heartier version. Goulash was especially popular during tough economic times, showcasing just how creative families could be in the kitchen. It was filling, flavorful, and made enough to ensure leftovers for the next day. As the savory aroma of onions and ground beef filled the air, families knew dinner would be warm, comforting, and satisfying. And from this rustic one-pot favorite, the next dish took inspiration from fine dining, bringing a taste of steakhouse indulgence without the hefty price tag. Salisbury steak, you saw the title, you clicked the thumbnail. Today we're making Salisbury steak. For many families, this dish was the closest thing to steak night without breaking the bank. But that didn't make it any less special. Instead of pricey cuts of beef, ground beef was seasoned, shaped into oval patties, and cooked in a rich, flavorful brown gravy. Named after Dr. James H. Salisbury, who believed in the health benefits of ground beef, this dish became a go-to meal during the Great Depression, when families had to stretch their food budgets. The gravy, made from simple ingredients like beef broth, onions, and flour, transformed the dish, adding richness and depth. Served with mashed potatoes or rice, the juicy beef patties soaked up every bit of the delicious sauce, making each bite even more satisfying. Salisbury steak proved that even basic ingredients could create something memorable. And as we savor its rich, comforting flavors, our next dish takes us back to the heart of home cooking, making the most of garden-fresh vegetables. Potato and cabbage hash Chef Buck here, and today we are cooking up a classic potato hash. For families with gardens, potato and cabbage hash was a cherished staple. This dish thrived on resourcefulness, especially during the Great Depression and World War II, when households stretched every ingredient to its fullest potential. Crispy, golden diced potatoes sizzled in the pan, creating an irresistible crust. Meanwhile, thinly sliced cabbage sautéed with butter and garlic became tender and aromatic, blending perfectly with the potatoes. Simple yet satisfying, this dish could be served as a side or as a hearty main course. The contrast between crispy potatoes and soft, buttery cabbage was pure comfort on a plate. To elevate the flavors, families would sprinkle paprika or add a dash of hot sauce. A sunny side-up egg on top turned this humble meal into a filling breakfast. When fresh garden vegetables were plentiful, but meat was scarce, another colorful and nutrient-packed dish emerged, designed to make the most of what was available. Vegetable stir-fry is quick, easy, and packed with flavor. Only if you do it right. When meat was hard to come by, this dish became a lifesaver, offering both nutrition and variety. Inspired by Asian culinary traditions, stir-frying gained popularity in American kitchens as families looked for ways to maximize their grocery budgets. Cooked quickly in a hot pan with soy sauce and garlic, stir-frying brought out the best in fresh vegetables. Vibrant carrots, crunchy bell peppers, tender onions, and nutrient-rich broccoli all came together in a colorful, flavorful medley. The bright colors and bold flavors made every bite exciting. More than just a budget-friendly dish, vegetable stir-fry was a celebration of seasonal produce, proving that simple ingredients could create something truly delicious. As the week went on, families found creative ways to use leftovers, turning to a creamy, comforting classic that transformed basic pantry items into a warm, satisfying meal. Chicken a la king. Welcome to Stay at Home Chef. Today, I'll show you how to make the ultimate chicken a la king, a creamy, comforting dish that turns simple ingredients into something extraordinary. This hearty classic features tender shredded chicken, sweet peas, and earthy mushrooms, all enveloped in a rich, velvety cream sauce. It gained popularity in the mid-20th century, especially after World War II, as families found creative ways to repurpose leftovers from Sunday roasts. Whether served over rice, pasta, or toast, chicken a la king felt indulgent, despite its humble origins, making it a family favorite. The real magic of this dish lay in its ability to transform everyday ingredients into something special. The creamy sauce, made from butter, flour, and the milk, brought everything together, creating a luxurious texture that coated each bite beautifully. As it simmered on the stove, the rich, savory aroma filled the kitchen, calling everyone to the table. Not only was chicken a la king warm and satisfying, but it was also practical. Any leftovers could be easily reheated for another delicious meal the next day. As weekends rolled in, families craved hearty, flavorful meals. This led them to another timeless favorite, one that stretched a small portion of beef into a dish full of indulgent taste and satisfaction. Beef stroganoff. Today, we're making the ultimate beef stroganoff, a rich, creamy dish featuring tender strips of beef and mushrooms in a luscious sauce. This easy 30-minute meal is a classic for a reason. Originally from Russian cuisine, beef stroganoff became a household staple in America, particularly after World War II, when families began embracing international flavors while still being mindful of their budgets. The dish starts with sautéed onions and mushrooms, followed by thinly sliced beef, cooked until just tender. The magic happens when it's simmered in a creamy, savory sauce made from sour cream and beef broth, creating an irresistibly smooth consistency. To make it more budget-friendly, many households adapted the recipe, using more affordable cuts of beef and serving it over egg noodles. The result? A luxurious yet practical meal that satisfied both taste and hunger. As it simmered on the stove, the mouth-watering aroma of beef, onions, and spices filled the kitchen, bringing families together for a cozy dinner. Beef stroganoff became a beloved go-to meal, offering comfort and a touch of elegance with every bite. After a rich, hearty main course, it was time for something sweet. A dessert that was as simple as it was delightful. Sponge cake high. I'm John Cannell from Preppy Kitchen, and today we're making a delicious Victoria sponge cake. Light, airy, and absolutely irresistible. This timeless dessert has been a favorite for generations, requiring just a few pantry staples: flour, sugar, eggs, and a bit of baking powder. The result? A fluffy, golden cake that melts in your mouth. Sponge cake is incredibly versatile. It can be enjoyed plain, dusted with powdered sugar, or dressed up with fresh fruit and whipped cream for a more festive touch. Whether served at birthday parties or as a simple after-dinner treat, it always brings a sense of joy to the table. Baking this cake often became a cherished family tradition, with kids eagerly helping to whisk the eggs and sugar until fluffy. As it baked, the kitchen filled with the warm, sweet scent of vanilla, making it impossible to wait for that first bite. While desserts brought sweetness to the table, colder months called for something